I'm fucking unstoppable when I believe in myself and I take massive action towards my goals and dreams. I was like, fuck, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't know if I can make this happen, right? That was kind of the pervasive thought that I was thinking and believing in.
I won't waste another minute, no, I won't. I'm a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission. I don't need no permission. I'm a man on a mission.
Welcome to Entitled to Nothing, where we believe our life is our fault. My name is Mink, and I started this show because I've spent the last 20 years of my life running headfirst into failure after failure, and I've learned how to turn my failures into lessons, and I've used those lessons to create life on my terms. I went from broke and bankrupt with 6 figures in debt to starting multiple companies that have generated over 50 million in sales. And I want to share everything I've learned on my journey to help inspire you on yours. Today, we're going to talk about overcoming our limiting beliefs and creating an abundance mindset. When I reflect back on my life, I can tell you guys without a shadow of a doubt, the number one thing that has held me back, and I believe the number one thing that limits all of us, that holds all of us back, is the limiting beliefs that we have about what is possible for us. You see, the limiting beliefs that we have determine our potential, right? And what we believe to be true for ourselves is either going to expand our capacity and create a higher level of potential, or limit it and hold us back. And I think too often in life, we play far below our capacity. We settle for less than we can be, for who we are, and that our potential is simply because we've been conditioned by the world to believe limitation. Growing up in my life, I had a lot of chaos and adversity growing up. And my dad, I love him, God rest his soul, he was an asshole at times. And he would tell me how worthless and useless I was for most of my life. And that created a limiting mindset, right? I came up in this environment of scarcity and chaos and abuse. And so I thought that I wasn't good enough and that I wouldn't be able to create the life that I wanted. And I believed the limitations I had for myself. And today, what I want to do is I want to share how I've overcome those limitations, especially as we sit here on the patio in Maui. This is something that I used to dream of. And now I'm living my dream as a reality because I learned how to overcome limitation. And to be honest with you guys, I still struggle with it because at every new level we reach, there's new fears and doubts, there's new limitations. But ultimately, if we're going to create our potential, if we're going to live into and create the life that we want, we have to build a process to overcoming adversity, to overcoming limiting beliefs, and to adopting and expanding an abundance mindset. And so today, I'm going to tell you guys a couple stories because I think ultimately, the biggest challenge we have with ending or overcoming limiting beliefs is actually identifying what our limiting beliefs are. And I know I've had experiences in my life where I have truly had a limitation, where I didn't think it was possible, but there's also been times in my life where I didn't realize how much I was limiting myself. And I think ultimately there's 3 ways that we uncover our limitations. Either an experience that we have in life shows us or exposes to us that there's a greater potential. And I've had several of these in business. One of the greatest days in my business was Black Friday 2022. And Black Friday is like the Super Bowl for e-commerce and for retail, right? We spend 3 or 4 months prepping and planning and preparing for this one weekend. And oftentimes, you might make 20, 30% of your sales over the course of the weekend or over the course of the couple weeks for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so it's a big deal, right? And I remember in Black Friday for 2022, we had spent a lot of time prepping and planning, and we had this really great strategy, and we were discussing what we thought might be possible for us. And the long story short is, I thought we might be able to do a couple $100,000 in sales. And when the dust was settled, we did over $300,000 in sales on Black Friday alone. Now, I share this not to impress you, but to express to you that I didn't even realize that my potential was so much greater than it was. And because I had planned and I had prepared and we had a great strategy, we had a great team and we executed very well, right? We had done all of this work and that exposed the limitation that I had. I didn't realize that I was capable, that the company we had was capable of making over $300,000 in a single day. To me, that seemed impossible at the time. And it was a moment where life exposed to me how small I was playing. And if we're lucky, we'll have multiple experiences like this where we will experience something, whether it's in a relationship, in business, a sale that we make, a deal that we close, something that happens. And on the other side of that, we're like, holy shit, I didn't think that was possible. How small am I actually playing? Right? And sometimes we're blessed with these moments, right? God graces us with an opportunity that is so far beyond what we thought possible that it takes us a moment to step back and say, wow, how small have I been playing? Right? So sometimes life exposes our limitations. Other times people expose the limitations that we have. You know, I had this really amazing experience with Regina. Regina's my executive assistant. And when she first started working with me, she was helping me plan a trip to Spain. And she said, hey, Anthony, do you want me to book you a first class ticket? And at the time, I didn't feel like I was worthy of A, spending that much money, or B, that it was possible for me. I had a scarcity mindset and I had a limitation because I didn't think that it was justified to spend that extra money for, a seat at the front of the bus, if you will. And she was like, hey, do you want me to buy you this first class ticket? And I said, oh, no, that's way too expensive. And she's like, well, I thought you said you were paying for it on miles. I said, well, yeah, I am, but it's a lot of miles and I don't want to waste them, when I could save them and use them for another trip. And she's like, well, Anthony, what other trip do you want to save them for? Like, you're going to Spain, you're doing this trip, like, why don't you just treat yourself? And she called me out on my limitation, right? I had this scarcity mindset that was, spending $7,000 on a plane ticket was way too much. And then I had this limiting belief that said, I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve to sit up there. Like, I don't need to, I can just sit in economy. I can, spend $1,200 instead of $7,000, and I can save the money and use that later. And she totally called me out on it. And she's like, what are you saving your miles for? Like, you work your ass off. You deserve this. Stop playing small. And I was like, I felt like a bitch. She just straight called me out on it. And I'm like, you know what, just fine, book the first class ticket. That's great. I want an aisle seat, And so for the first time in my life, I spent $7,000 on a plane ticket. And the experience I had cruising into Spain, like getting on the plane, knowing that I had to lay down seats, knowing that I had the opportunity to sit first class and treat myself, it was extraordinary. And it never would have happened if I didn't have a friend in my life that called me out on my limitation, that believed I was possible of more and called me up. So we also, sometimes life is going to expose our limitations. And in order for life to expose them, oftentimes we can only see it looking back, right? We can't connect the dots looking forward, but if we look back, oftentimes we can connect the dots and realize how small we have been playing. And then there's times in our lives where our friends call us out. They challenge us to step up. They challenge us to play at a higher level. This is one of the reasons why I've always invested into mentors, because mentors are going to call you out. They're going to call you up, and they're going to try to expand your ability to believe what's possible for yourself. And then the third way that we uncover our limiting beliefs is simply on reflection. Sometimes we all have blind spots and we can't see what we can't see. And oftentimes the only way that we can uncover the limitations or the fears that we have is simply by trying to take a step back and objectively look at things and say, how am I doing over here and what's going on over here? And, how do I feel about this area of my life? And I think ultimately, the only way to expand beyond our limitations is to first identify what they are. And that's a difficult process. And oftentimes the only way we can do it is through time and reflection. It's through life and grace. And then also with friends and mentors calling us out and challenging us to be more than what we currently can be. But ultimately, once we identify what our limitations are, right? I had a limitation in my life of what I thought was possible for my business to do on Black Friday. And we exploded that limitation because of the work that we had put in, right? We did what we needed to do. We prepared, we worked hard. And even with that, I still limited what I thought was possible because I just didn't know what our potential was. But by showing up every day and doing the work, we exploded our potential. And it made us realize that we were capable of so much more, and then we have friends that call us out and call us up and challenge us to experience life at a higher level, to treat ourselves, to reward ourselves, that we do deserve more, right? My hope is that you have some incredible people like that in your life, because I've been blessed to have many of them. But once we uncover what these limitations are, we have to then work to get rid of them, to rewrite them. And one of the things that I do is I go through a process where I literally, once I know what my limitation is, I write out the opposite of what that limitation is. So at one point in time in my life, I felt like I wasn't good enough to achieve the business success that I wanted and to create the life that I desired. And I was like, fuck, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't know if I can make this happen, right? That was kind of the pervasive thought that I was thinking and believing in. And I sat down and I rewrote that. And I said, I'm fucking unstoppable when I believe in myself and I take massive action towards my goals and dreams. And I wrote that every day. I'm fucking unstoppable. I'm fucking unstoppable. I'm fucking unstoppable when I believe in myself and I take massive action in the direction of my dreams and goals. And little by little, I started to change my thought process from I'm not good enough to I'm unstoppable. And anytime I would have that thought that was like, you're not good enough, I would replace it with, bro, you're fucking unstoppable. All you have to do is believe in yourself and work your fucking ass off. And so part of the process of overcoming our limiting beliefs and eliminating the scarcity that we have starts with, once we identify them, then we have to reframe them and overwrite them and create a new perspective. Ultimately, a belief is nothing more than something that we adopt as truth. It's something that we identify as, okay, that is a fact of my life. I will believe that, right? And so oftentimes beliefs or limiting beliefs are created because we have an intense emotion and we have a thought. And those two things get merged together. And with intense emotion or experience and thought, that merges together and that creates either a limiting belief or an empowering belief. And so the second way that I have overcome the limitations and the limiting belief in my life is by intentionally creating an experience and then merging that experience with a belief. And this is a good example, is the story that I told you about flying first class. So Regina challenges me to buy that ticket and to have that experience. And I knew that if I went into that experience with a scarcity mindset or feeling like I didn't deserve it, or I don't know if I should have spent that much on it, if I had any doubt in my mind, that would become a negative experience. So after I booked the ticket, I made a commitment to myself and I said, I'm flying first class and I'm going to fucking enjoy every ounce of it. I'm not even going to, for a moment, allow myself to feel bad about the price of this ticket. I'm not going to, for a moment, allow myself to feel like I don't deserve it. I'm going to show up and embrace the entire fucking experience. And not only that, I'm going to turn it into a very intense positive emotion. And I'm going to tell myself, you deserve this. You own this. You've created this. This is what your life is. And I merged the two together. And that's exactly what I did. I got on that plane and I was like, fuck, I deserve to be here. I earned this, right? This is the type of experience I've worked my ass off to create for myself. And I sat back, I fucking laid down in my lay down seat, I ordered ice cream, I had every snack I could get. I indulged to the fullest extent possible in that 15-hour flight. And I left feeling empowered. I left feeling like no longer was I going to limit myself and not reward myself in the way that's possible. And you know what's crazy is the next trip I took, a little while later, I flew to Australia, and there wasn't even a doubt in my mind. I'm fucking flying first class. I don't care what the price is. I deserve it. I've earned it, right? And I remember when I went to buy that ticket, I didn't have any of those feelings of fear and limitation. And I was like, holy shit, I killed that limiting belief. That scarcity mindset around this area of my life is gone forever. And every time I get on a plane, every time I experience rewarding myself, I'm going to have an intense emotional experience. I'm going to feel gratitude and excitement. I'm going to feel so blessed to be in that position. And I'm going to marry that with, I deserve this. This is for me. I earned this. And by bringing those two together, I'm going to shatter the limitation that existed in that area of my life. And I can tell you guys, this is why I started creating belief trips in my life. I have this thing and I call it a belief trip. And what it means is I'm going to push myself beyond what my current comfort zone is. I'm going to stretch past what I can maybe afford or what's normal for me to spend. I'm going to go beyond my comfort zone. And then I'm going to marry an intense emotional experience, the enjoyment, the excitement, the gratitude, the pleasure of that moment with, I deserve this, I've earned this, keep moving forward, keep growing, keep expanding. And I link the two together. And I create this positive reinforcement where I say, you know what, shit. Like another perfect example. I'm using travel examples with you guys from my life because this is what I love to do the most. I've literally built and constructed my entire life around the opportunity to do business, which I love, and to travel and experience and live a life that I love. And that's what living life on your terms means. It means getting clear on what you want, how you want to live your life, and then ultimately from there, going after building that life so you can live yours exactly the way that you want. But you know, when I would travel, I would find a reasonable place, a place that was cheap but nice. You know, it's like I'm going to get the best possible place for the lowest possible price. It's like, oh, I don't deserve to spend, you know, a lot of money on a place. I don't need it. I'm not this like bougie, high maintenance dude. I just need a good place and a beach view. And I'm happy, you know? But then I started taking belief trips and I realized the only reason why I felt that way is because I didn't feel like I was worthy. I didn't feel like I was deserving. And ultimately I had a scarcity mindset. And so I went from, you know, spending a couple $100s a night on a place to $400 or $500 a night on a place. And then Mike and I went to Fiji recently. And the whole reason why I went to Fiji was to take a belief trip. I booked a first class ticket. I booked the most luxurious 5-star resort I've ever stayed at. It was the most money I've ever spent on a trip. I think in the matter of a week, we spent like 20 grand, which that's more money than I made like my entire first few years in business. My first year in business, I made like negative money. My next year in business, I made negative money. Right? And then I started to make some money. And, you know, after 15 years, I'm in this position, but spending 20 grand in a week was literally more money than I made in an entire year, not that long ago. And now I'm spending it on a week. That seems insane. It seems irresponsible. And that's exactly why I did it. Because I needed to expand my capacity of what I thought was possible for myself. And I don't know what this might be for you. This might be for you going and test driving a car that you love, that you dream to have one day, giving yourself an emotional experience, stepping in that, you know, new Range Rover or that Ferrari or whatever it is for you, and getting in that and sitting behind that steering wheel and being like, I fucking own this. I deserve this. I should have this. I'm going to go work my ass off to create it. Maybe it's going and doing open houses or looking at a new neighborhood that you would love to live in. Like, I don't know what this thing is for you. For me, the experience of traveling and exploring is the juice that really gets me going. It's one of the greatest loves of my life. And so for me, all of my limitations and belief get exploded in either the business environment or the travel and the experience environment. So you have to figure out what it is for you, but what you need to do. Maybe it's taking yourself out to a really nice dinner, you and your wife, once a month. Normally maybe you spend $100 and you go spend $400 or $500 on one dinner. It's totally irresponsible, but you do it that one day, that one time, that one quarter, whatever it is. And you do it and you fully fucking embrace it. You enjoy it. You love it. You don't for a moment allow lack or limitation to come in. And you marry an intense, beautiful experience with the belief, or the words, the thoughts, you deserve this, it's possible, you've earned it. And by marrying those two things together, again, you override limitation and you override the scarcity mindset, and you start to expand what you know is possible for you. I think if you can do these few things, if you can get clarity on what your limiting beliefs are by living your life and letting life expose some of those limitations, by surrounding yourself with friends and mentors that are going to call you up and call you out on your shit, and also by taking a step back and just reflecting on life, right? If we can identify the limiting beliefs that we have in our life, and then we can reframe them into something that is empowering. I went from I'm not good enough to I'm fucking unstoppable when I believe in myself and take massive action, right? I rewired the language, or I reframed the language, and then I started to marry intense emotional experiences with positive affirming thoughts. And by bringing those two things together, I've overcome my limitation and my fear at the current level that I'm playing at. But at every new level, again, we have new limitations, new fears. This is a muscle that we must develop, and we have to continually work and exercise and flex. And I can tell you guys, I don't think we ever truly overcome all limitation, all scarcity. I think at every new level, we have a new level of capacity that we need to grow through and expand through. And so this is a game, this is a journey, this is a muscle that you will use forever. And ultimately, all I can do is share with you what's worked in my life and how I've overcome a lot of the limitation and a lot of the fears, the doubts, and the scarcity. But I know without a shadow of a doubt that if you can have an intense emotional experience, a high, an amazing day, an amazing sale event, an amazing experience, right? Whatever that is. And then you can affirm that with, this happened because I earned it, I worked for it, I made it possible, I deserve it. And you reinforce that belief and you marry the two together, you start to create a new belief system. You start to adopt something new as true. And the more that you reinforce that belief, the more that it becomes stronger, and you can use that to build the life that you want and to create life on your terms, which again, I believe is the goal. That's what I'm hoping for. That's my prayer for you, is that you have the capacity to expand beyond your limitations and create life on your terms. And if you can learn how to overcome adversity, to overcome the limitations, and you can use this process, I guarantee you can build a life that's greater than what you're currently experiencing, because your potential is so much greater than your current reality. And I believe we all owe it to ourselves to live into our potential and to create the greatest versions of ourselves, to become the man that we admire, and then give that man to the world. Thank you for hanging out with me today. Let me know what you think of this concept, this idea of overcoming our limitations and killing scarcity mindset so we can live in a state of possibility and abundance. If you got value from this show, the only thing I would ever ask is share this with someone that you know needs to hear it. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I'll see you guys on the next one.